Alright you guys, well, welcome back to the channel. It is a cold and rainy day today, so we got a bunch to do inside the nursery. We're going to do a big potting up day, all kinds of different things. Did pour rain last night and the tarp blew off the hay, so that's a big problem. Gonna have to get that sorted out at some point. Probably take the top of the layer off and move it, but we'll get to that a little bit later on, maybe once it warms up a little bit. So first things first, we'll get into some chores and then we'll start potting up in the nursery. All right, well, I just left greenhouse 2 and those onions are starting to sprout. They're slow, but they're definitely starting. So hopefully if we maybe just bump the heat just a little bit more for another day or two, they'll start to bounce pretty good. All the plugs look like they didn't shock too hard last night. They're all looking really good as well. I don't know if we're gonna get the potting these up today. We might do some geraniums, but I don't think we'll start baskets. We might wait until maybe tomorrow or the day after. These are fine to sit like this for a little 2-3 days, as long as you're giving them a lot of water and whatnot. So we'll look at doing that. But yeah, let's head down to the nursery and we'll show you guys what we're gonna get potted up today. And here's a quick update on our garden leeks. So we actually plant them in these old bulb crates. What are they? They're like 10, maybe 12 inches wide and 18 to 22 maybe long, and then 8 inches deep. Leeks like a deep root bed. So we'll plant them in here in 4 rows and we shoot to get about 100 in each row. And then as they start to size up like this, I just came through yesterday and then just hilled them up a little bit. And they're in here for quite a long time. They are a long crop. So what we'll end up doing is we'll actually feed these in here probably twice. We'll sprinkle alfalfa all over the top and then hill it again, just to start to give it some support up on the side of the stalk. And then when they go out into the field, we'll actually bust them all apart and then plant them individually, which I'll show you at some point a little later in the spring once we get them out into the field. But they're doing quite well. We might plant one more tray. Just there was a little bit of a not great germination down in this corner and then a little bit right here. So I'm a little nervous that there's not quite enough. Same with here. And I don't want to be short because it's a lot of work to prep the bed for these. So we might just do one more and do half a bed and then do the other half as like a little bit later. So almost like 2 successions, but yeah, they're looking real good. I think what we might work on today is we'll pot up some eggplant, probably do some green onions. The celery is just coming around. I'll show you guys in another video how I do this, but it looks pretty good. It didn't shock as bad as I thought it might, but we'll go ahead and fill our 4-inch pots. Same as everything else. Don't pack it in too tight. And if anything, you'd want these to be a little bit lower so that when you water them, there's at least a 1/4 inch of pot exposed to hold water, especially with peppers, tomatoes, and eggplant, because the plant itself gets fairly bushy. When they're all in a tray, they're hard to get water down in it, so you kind of want to be able to flood water where you water it, let it fill the pot, fill an inch or sorry, 1/4 inch, and then soak in, because the foliage sometimes lets it shed. So that's actually what that lip is for on a pot. Like your dirt line should be at that lower level. That way you can fill that top 1/4 inch with water and then let it soak in. This new dirt that we got this year, this new potting soil, I don't know if it's just this one first bag that we opened up, but it's a little bit coarser. It's got a lot more twigs and sticks in it. So I'm hoping that it was just a one-off bag, that the whole load isn't like that and they changed their blend, but it's going to be a little bit harder for the seeding in the cell trays. We'll have to sift it even more just to get the larger chunks out. You can see what's happening there. See how the whole bottom of the plug's busting off? It's because it's not watered deep enough into the cell plug. So the bottom half of the roots isn't being held together by the wet dirt. So I'll just water that tray a little bit more and try to get the water all the way to the bottom. So eggplant's actually one thing that we decided to take out of the gardens this year. We used to plant a full 50-foot bed of it, but in our local area, it just seems like it doesn't sell. So it's one of those crops that we end up harvesting and it doesn't sell, and then it sits, and then we end up feeding it to the chickens or composting it. So we cut it right out of the garden this year, and I think we filled it with another row of jalapenos maybe. We want to try to sell bulk bags of jalapeno peppers instead of 1 pound and half pounds. We want to sell 5, 10, 15, 20 pound bags. So we're going to try to do a few extras. So that was one swap we made this year. We're still growing for the season sale and for our wholesale customer, because there are still some people that want them for their own gardens, but we just didn't really find the value in continuing to do them for our market garden. And then with eggplant, tomatoes, and peppers, we'll plant them deep right up to that first set of leaves. Not like basically where the first true leaf comes out. We'll just bury them right up to there. The green onions did pretty good this year. Germinated quite well. We're still trying new things throughout the seasons. This year we did them in 128s, but I think that what we're going to hopefully try to switch to is just going straight into the 606s. They germinate well, and you could always move them around if need be, but I think it would just save one less step for how well they do germinate. I don't think that it makes sense to do them like this. One thing we've done in the past is done them in 72s, and I would not recommend doing that for the sheer reason of that the 72 cell tray is very similar to the same size as a 606 cell. Like this size here is very similar to that. Like it doesn't seem, like it looks a little bit smaller, but when you try to stuff that into here, once this is full of dirt, you don't end up with a whole lot of room. So it can kind of be a pain in the butt. So 128s is a little bit better, but ideally I think just going straight into your saleable tray is probably the best solution on there. Okay, well, some of that stuff that we originally were going to pot up today wasn't quite ready. I kind of lost my patience a little bit with it just not being rooted up enough. So Shailene kind of jumped in to take over some of the onions. She's got more patience than I do. And then I brought down a tray of begonias from yesterday's pickup for our plugs. This is all just going to go straight into 4-inch. So we're working on that right now. They look pretty good. One thing with begonias is you don't want to bury them too deep. You want to make sure you just plant them right to the base of the plant there. If you go too much higher, you can get dampening off, so something to watch for. What are you planting?
Onions?
Walla Walla?
These are Walla Wallas, yeah.
Basically just making room. This wasn't a great germination on this first round. So she's just splitting them a little bit to fill the trays in, and then the next round I think turned out pretty good.
Yeah, I'll have to do the same thing because I overseeded because the germination wasn't very good. So now in here, instead of just planting that in one, I'll separate it into 3 so that they have enough space to grow. But luckily for me, onions come apart really easily. So you can just pull them apart gently.
And what are you shooting for, like 3 a cell?
3 to 4 per cell, yeah.
Yeah, we got these begonias done. I've lost the tag, so I don't know what they are. I think Shaylin said mocha white. So one thing to be real cautious of is that these are very delicate when you're transplanting. It's really easy to snap them off right at the stalk, or even the leaves for that matter. So you want to be real gentle when you're putting them in there. And then one thing you got to do too is, because they get so big and they have such a broad leaf, is as they start to size up, a lot of the times the water won't actually be able to get down into the dirt. So as they sell, you kind of want to start to space them out a little bit on the trays. So you'd like, if this one sells, move that guy over and then skip every other one. That way you can get in there with your water and give them a good drink. They turned out like they're looking pretty good. Well, we're just moving some plants up to the sale house just because the sun come out, so it's nice and warm. But you can see that we got a ton of snow up on the mountains there last night, so it's not quite spring yet. All right, well, we're gonna change gears a little bit here. I don't think the weather's gonna get a whole lot better for today, so we won't be moving too many more plants up. Snow keeps blowing in and whatnot, so we're gonna change gears and we're going to plant our ginger for the year. I think we got enough room inside the seedling room, so we basically cleared off the entire top shelf, which is what we want to do, where it's the hottest and we can maintain the highest humidity. We were gonna do it up in the greenhouse too, where we did the onions, but I don't think we can maintain a high enough temperature with the forecast the way it's looking. So we made room in the seedling room. We'll get these potted up. A few things we're gonna need is the ginger, which we obviously have, and then I just brought in a bunch of pots. So we just run a 4-inch pot into a standard 1020 tray, flat bottom, deep, same as we do our tomatoes and peppers, and then we'll just run 10 of these in there. So we'll get going here. The other thing that we need is compost dirt. So same mix as the eggplants like I talked about. Mix up a big batch and go from there, because we are going to be planting around, what is it, 40, like probably 50 pounds of ginger. So we're going to dive into that right now today. All right, so what we're going to be doing here is we want to leave about a good inch of space, like so. And then we're gonna just fill this up with 10 trays all the way down. And then what we're gonna aim to do is put about 100 grams of ginger in each pot. I'll probably weigh the first couple just to make sure that we're kind of close. And then we're just gonna lay those in there. And then we'll come back and we'll fill that in with a bit of dirt on top. And water it in heavy and then let that sit in the seedling room. So I think what the math works out to is we got about 20 of these to do. Should be 10 in each. And that should be enough to do an entire 65 foot bed, give or take, in greenhouse 2 once the time comes. So like I say, some of these bigger pieces, we'll bust them up. And you just want to bust them apart at the skinny part. So you can bust them apart there. And if you're unfamiliar with ginger, all the new shoots will grow out of these new nodes here. So you can kind of see a fresh one coming right there, that little white dot. That'll be where a branch will come up to the surface and send out leaves, and then the roots will come off the bottom. So one of those will probably 4 times its size throughout the season. And they are a heavy feeder, so that's why we're running the compost dirt in there. And then throughout the season, we'll probably amend them twice. We'll do like a hilling and amend with probably chicken manure, pellets, or alfalfa. Okay, so you don't have to overthink this. You don't have to fill every last little piece. You just want a nice, good sized piece. The smaller you break them, the smaller that they'll grow. So you want to try to leave them as big as you can so that you get enough regrowth for them to grow another rhizome. So that's one tray done. We'll cover those with dirt, and then we'll jump into the, I don't know, 40 or 50 more we got to do. All right, well, if you're wondering where to get your ginger, pretty well any grocery store for the most part. If you're just looking to do it for, you know, a small amount, kind of in your backyard deal, I would just look for organic if you can. I know a lot of that other stuff that they bring in from overseas has been sprayed with a non-sprouting, so it won't send up new shoots. But if you get the organic stuff, it's usually a little bit more expensive, but it doesn't have that spray on it, so it will sprout. A couple things that you can do as well if you wanted is you can pre-soak it. I personally don't, but you can pre-soak it in water for a little while until it starts to sprout, and then put it in the dirt. And then the key is going to be just keeping it wet. You don't want to let it dry out. It is a bit of a tropical plant, so like I say, high humidity when you're germinating it. And then once it sprouts though, you don't need to maintain that high humidity, but I would recommend putting it in a greenhouse. That way you can keep the daytime and nighttime temperatures quite high, because it does thrive in the heat. So that's just a couple tips there if you plan on doing this at home. All right, well, as you can tell, the weather can't make up its mind today. It's now full sun and hot as hell in here. But we did manage to get all the ginger potted up, and we ended up with a little bit extra, which is good, because I actually forgot that we upped our bed length in our greenhouse. Originally we were running 50s in there, and now we run 65-ish beds. So we ended up with 28, I believe, which should allow for a little bit extra. We'll have to make a bit more room in the seedling room, but we're gonna get these watered in and then hauled over there and see what we got for room. All right, we just ended up bringing up all the ginger into the seedling room, and it took up the entire top shelf all the way around, and then we had the extra 8 that I didn't really account for, so I had to move a few things and put them on the next shelf down, which is good. So the next step that I'm going to do, because I consider ginger more important than some of the other things in here, is I will bump the humidity up from what it normally sits at. So usually we run it at around a 78. I'll bump that up to like an 82, just to ensure that this germinates. And the other thing that we're doing is that, because we're only really sprouting seeds in here, we're not trying to sprout seeds and grow out plants. We can run a little bit of a higher humidity. If we were trying to do both like we do earlier in the season, I wouldn't recommend bumping the humidity that high, because once the plant starts to is sprouted and has leaves, it's not going to want to grow that well in a high humidity. So you're better off to move those out, which we do, to the nursery. So we'll maintain a higher humidity in here, and then I'm also going to bump the temperature up. Usually we run it around 20, 21. I'm going to bump it up between 22, 23. I could go to 25, but some of the things that are sprouting in here for seeds don't like it quite that high, so just trying to find that balance. And then the other quick note, if you don't have a room like this to maintain a high humidity, you could run a dome over your trays of ginger, or even just a piece of plastic, clear plastic, until it sprouts, and then remove it. And that'll just maintain a higher humidity underneath the plastic. So that's another quick thing that you could try. And then the other thing you could do too is you can actually just fill one of these trays, flat bottom trays, with dirt and plant them right in there. And then once they send up new shoots, each new shoot will actually start to grow its own roots off that original ginger root. So you can actually break those off, the roots will come with it, and then you could just replant those too. It's a quick way to maximize more ginger off of, you know, less root stock. I've done that in the past. But that's pretty well it for ginger. Ginger for 2025 is a go. We'll kind of keep you guys updated throughout the season once it sprouts and how we plant it into the gardens. So once again, thanks for watching.